All right, listen to these words now. Cow, almond, oat, soy, coconut, all kinds of milks. Even ordering a coffee can leave you spinning with all the choices. Is one type of milk really better for you than the other? And how do you know which one is right for your health and lifestyle? Welcome to a Healthier Michigan podcast. I'm your host, Chuck Gaidica, and every other week we dive into topics that help us live our healthiest life, and covering everything here from nutrition to mental health to physical health and social media trends, all of this and how it impacts your wellness. Today we're joined by Shanthi Appelö, registered nutritionist, who's here to help us break down this growing array of milk types and explore the health benefits, if there are some, of each, and give you and I, some guidance for choosing which is best for us beyond the social media trends and what we're seeing on our phones. Good to see you again.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, so I named off just some of the milks, right, that are out there. And they didn't say chocolate milk was great for you, although, I do snatch that every once in a while. Yeah. So let's start with milk, right? Cow's milk. And it's been around forever. Main health benefits of what we would say is not unleaded, but regular cow's milk. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are they? What are the benefits?
So the reason it's been part of a lot of recommendations is the calcium that's in it, right? So one glass has about a third of what we need in a day as adults. And of course, when children are young, their needs are a little bit greater, and it's really important to build up those calcium stores for when they're older. Yeah. And so that's why it's been a big recommendation. It's also got a little bit of protein. So about 8 grams for a cup. That's something that's really important. Yeah. A lot of them are fortified with vitamin D, so it helps with that calcium absorption. And then it's great for, just very versatile and things like that. So it's been a part of our recommendations for a really long time for that reason.
Well, a lot of people are cutting back, and the question then becomes, well, what are you going to cut back to if you want to put something in your coffee, if you want to have it on your cereal, what is a good idea? But for a lot of kids, and you mentioned kids, for some kids under what age, it's not a recommended thing, right? Right.
Yeah, the immature kidneys and some other reasons are why we don't recommend it for kids under 12 months.
Alternative milks, you're saying. It's not
cow's
recommended.
Milk is not recommended under a year. But for kids that have allergies and things like that, there are some where you work with your pediatrician and can figure out something that works for you, especially if you have a protein allergy or something like that. Yeah. Now, there's a lot of reason why people choose not to drink cow's milk, right? There's ethical reasons. Maybe people feel that, hey, I don't feel right that this calf is separated from its mom so young for me to have this milk, or maybe environmental reasons, because we understand that having cows, they're big animals. It uses a lot of water, uses a lot of land. So there's a lot of CO2 emissions and things like that. So other people may just feel that health-wise, it's a better choice to choose something else because, some milk, whole milk, has a lot of saturated fat. So if you consume too much saturated fat, it can have a negative impact on our heart health. So there's all these alternatives, and it really comes down to reading the label, honestly, because now there are so many things that they're doing to these. They're fortifying them with all the same nutrients. Some of them they're adding protein, and they're made very similarly to cow's milk when we put it into our glass.
That's interesting you say that. So if I go back in my lifetime to my childhood, one of the reasons I didn't have alternative milk is because it wasn't a thing.
It wasn't.
Right?
Yeah.
And in some countries, even to this day, it's just not a thing. You just don't even know that it's available, or you're not exposed to it. So that's an interesting question to even think about. Which way is this working? Is it because we're being marketed something now you're using the word fortified, which is interesting because that means they're still mixing it together in a place, right, and creating this milk for us. When you talk about the environment, how much water goes into almonds that have, how do you squeeze the almond to make milk? Well, you don't. You just blend it with water, but then there's water, right? Right. So all these things are so interesting, and yet I've defaulted myself to almond milk generally, for coffee and for other things. Even if I have a cookie, I'll pour myself half a glass of almond milk, but it's just my thing. Is that the most common? Is it oat, or which is the most common plant-based milk that's out there?
I would say that it's mostly soy.
It is, okay.
Because it's the most similar. Pea milk is not as common, but
Doesn't taste great.
It's also one of the ones that are the most similar to milk in terms of protein content.
Okay.
And then, of course, calcium is added and vitamin D is added and things like that.
Yeah.
Something that we have to recognize, too, with you're like, oh, well, they're mixing, they're adding things. A lot of that's happening to milk, too. When we see high protein milk or these ultra filtrated options, they're doing that too, right?
Or lactose free. I mean, anytime they're altering it, they're going to pay more for it too.
Yeah, and that's another reason why people are choosing plant-based milks is because of the lactose.
Yeah.
Now, about 36% of Americans are not able to tolerate lactose. And that number is greater in certain population, African American, Native American, tends to be a little bit lower in Northern Europeans, but that's another reason why someone may choose, one of these alternatives. When it comes down to it, when you're comparing and you're looking at labels, because that's really what it comes down to. So many different brands have so many different ingredients and whatnot. What we want to look for is at least 300 milligrams of calcium. Mm-hmm. We want to see 100 IUs of vitamin D.
Okay.
We also want to look for something that doesn't have a lot of added sugar, because that's something that is so common, especially when you see the word vanilla or chocolate. Anytime it has a flavor, most likely it's going to have some sugar. So we want to look for something that has no more than 5 grams. The less, the better. And then, of course, we want to look at something that has protein. Usually we want to aim for something that's similar to milk, so maybe about 8 grams, so that we get a little bit of a filling component in that milk too.
So let's talk about this idea of sugars in milk, because that's one of the things I look at. When I look at the calorie right on the front, I don't even have to look at the label. I'm seeing my milk that I'm usually getting 30 calories for a whole glass.
Yeah.
Versus, you can go to 60 calories, 100 calories. All I know is they're adding more sugar to get me to say, oh, that's a better tasting vanilla sweetened milk. Yeah, well, it is, because there's more sugar, right?
And sometimes they add a little bit of fat too to make it creamier, especially if you see things that are like the barista blend.
Come on.
Yeah.
No kidding. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
I
because
do
they
love
are making
the full fat oat milk.
Well, they're making creamers. So maybe that's what they're doing too. It's not just that it's got more oats, it's got more fat.
Yeah. Yeah, oftentimes that's what it is. And so it really comes down to what you're doing at the store, looking at the added sugar, looking at the total fat, and then those nutrients that we really care about for everyday overall health. Yeah,
so getting those vitamins and other things. So is reading a label a good idea for us to start to employ?
I think especially for something like these alternative milks. Now, if you're going to get something at a coffee place, you're not going to have access to that. So I think I can kind of give a little bit of an overview of each of these milks, right? So the soy milk, really good for having protein. We want to watch out for added sugar, especially if they're flavored. But generally, the composition is going to be similar to cow's milk. Oat milk, people love it in their coffee because it tends to be a little bit creamier. I'm an oat milk person. I've gotten used to the taste. Yeah. And you can use it, of course, not when it's sweetened, but to cook with a little bit. So I use it if I'm making a pancake batter. I'm using it in all kinds of things. Yeah. And it steams really well. So if you're making your morning latte, you want to steam that milk. It acts very similar to cow's milk in that regard, but it's not going to have as much protein, probably about 4 to 5 grams. Then we've got almond milk, which you mentioned. Of course, people who have environmental concerns, it does use a lot of water to make. Now, this is good, especially if you're looking for something low calorie. You're just wanting a little bit of creaminess, not a lot of calories. Doesn't have a lot of protein, only about 1 gram for a cup. Yeah. And so that could be good if you're just looking for a little splash of something, right?
But, if you're adding it in places where you would normally put cream or milk, I've made French toast with oat and almond milk. Just add it to the eggs and you're still getting the protein in the egg. So there are ways to use it where you're blending it in, with other things, and it seems to work fine.
Or a smoothie or something, and then coconut milk, we don't hear as much about it in terms of drinking it. It is really high in saturated fat. And so just because it's plant-based doesn't mean it's not going to have a negative effect on our heart health. The saturated fat, you see it's solid at room temperature, and then there's a little bit of liquid at the end of the can. Yeah. All of that is solid fat. great to cook with, great to make a curry with, but something we need to look out for.
It's so funny to me because coconut water has become such a thing.
Yes.
Just the word, you would think coconut itself would propel the milk to a higher level of purchase, but it's not been really a thing.
Yeah. The coconut water is known for the electrolytes. That's why people tend to consume it more. And of course, it's been extracted, a lot of the fat and things like that.
So is there any milk that we're missing here? I don't think so. You talked a little bit about pea protein in milk, but that's not become such a big milk product, has it?
It hasn't. There's also cashew milk. There's rice milk. And so it comes down to maybe if you have allergies. And again, just look at that checkbox. What makes sense for your lifestyle?
All right, so as we wrap up, talk about this balance again. Go back to the beginning of this conversation because we are inundated. I mean, really, it is a wall of milk now.
Yeah. I think when it comes down to it, we need to think about the nutrients that we need in our everyday life, that a lot of them can come from milk, right? We need calcium for strong bones. Women over 50 tend to need a little bit extra calcium. And then we also need to think about that vitamin D to help absorb it. And of course, to give us a little bit of energy and things like that. We need protein to help keep us fuller for longer. And it's a great way to get a little bit of protein without overdoing it in all these protein bars and things like that, right? And then, of course, it fits into things that we're already consuming in a day. Maybe you love smoothies, maybe you love coffee, but really comes down to reading labels to make sure we're not over-consuming that saturated fat or that added sugar.
Start reading labels.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my charge. Keep reading labels. Anyway, thanks. Good to see you, Shanthi.
Likewise.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us on a Healthier Michigan podcast brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. If you like our show, you want to know more, you can always check it out at ahealthiermichigan.org/podcast. You can give us a rating. You can share the podcast. You can leave us comments. Let us know what you think or what you would like us to talk about next. You can subscribe and favorite us wherever you listen and check us out on YouTube too. Don't forget that. We hope we gave you a tip today to stay healthy. Until next time, I'm Chuck Gaidica. Be well.